Officers Network, where we're live from the Axon booth at IACP in Dallas. I have the pleasure of sitting with Chief of the Houston Metro Transit Police,
Yes.
Vera Bumpers. And I
Yes.
have to say, she's also the Woman Law Enforcement Officer of the Year.
Yes.
And I was fortunate enough to have heard you speak
Yes.
yesterday at
Yes.
the National Association of Women Law Enforcement Executives yesterday,
Yes.
the
Yes.
breakfast. And tell me a little bit about, you mentioned to me you were the first woman to climb through the ranks and be promoted through every level.
Yes.
And now you're the chief.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about how you got into policing and how you joined
Right.
and
The why.
climbed.
Yeah. The why.
The why.
The why. The why was after I graduated from college, and I needed a job because my father said, "You can't come back here. You're a visitor at this point." So I decided to go into law enforcement. My goal was really social work. But at that time, I applied and was too slow. I knew I needed a job, so of course, law enforcement positions were open and prevalent throughout the U.S. at that time, just as they are now. It seems like we've evolved back to that same state. But so that's how I got into law enforcement, and then as moving through the ranks, a lot of that was because I saw supervisors that I felt like I could do a better job, and like we all do, we all feel like we can do a better job. Doesn't necessarily mean we can, but when you believe that and you can believe you can make a more of an impact in a leadership role, that is why I decided to ascend through the ranks. Now, coming to the position of chief, that was not on my bucket list. It just happened.
Wow.
After I'd been the assistant chief for 2 weeks, they called me in and said, "We're going to make you the chief." So that just happened miraculously, I think.
I don't know. I have to say, to be the first, it can't just happen.
Well,
I'm sure
that's
your
true.
hard work
Yeah, it
and
does.
your ethic had to have been part of that.
It does. It does. And that's very important, how you conduct yourselves, because I always tell people sometimes people see more in you than you see in yourself. And we discount ourselves many times, but people are watching us and watching how we conduct ourselves and our work ethic. And I do understand that a lot of what we do as we move through the ranks requires us to work and work hard and be committed to what we're doing professionally and ethically. So I do know that that is a lot of it.
Yes.
So
And one of the things that I remember you saying during your speech, which was a beautiful speech, by the
thank
way,
you so much.
you spoke a lot about glass ceilings.
Yes.
And then you called it a ceramic ceiling because sometimes you can't see the top.
Yes.
I'd love to hear a little bit about that. You are a woman, you are a woman of color,
Right.
and, you've been able to do this. Tell me a little bit about how it really works being a female in law enforcement.
I think that there's not, there's no test that says female, male. We all take the same test. We go through the same process. But I think sometimes because this has been a male-dominated field, people look for it to be a man in leadership roles. They look for a man in this profession because just as society, there are things about we tell girls you're pretty,
Yeah.
you have to be dainty, and don't get dirty. You hear that growing up. So with men, you don't hear that. But I think that sometimes those stereotypical things that, it wasn't wrong what our parents were telling us. I mean, I think they were doing it from a good place. But we've made some decisions as we become adults and say, I see this, that I can make an impact in this profession. You never hear, most girls didn't hear their parents say, go be a police officer. They're saying, be a nurse, be a teacher. But there is a place for women in this profession. And I think when I talk about the ceramic ceiling, because you could not see at the time I was coming along in this profession. You could not see what was going on behind the closed doors in the executive
Right.
sessions at the table. And because it was, again, a male-dominated role, all of your supervisors were men. At that time, I didn't have that example of a female. But I think that has changed. It's evolved because leaders understand and they see the value that females bring to the profession. But I always say that I really don't want us to focus so much on that's a female officer, that's a male officer. We're police officers, and you want to be respected and treated like that. Don't treat me with kid gloves because you think I'm a woman.
Mhm.
We do the same thing as men. The academy class training that we go through is the same as the men. They don't give us a break.
Yeah.
So I just think that we bring so much to the table. Men bring a lot to the table also. And for many women, they had men as their mentors because they didn't see women in those positions. So we are co-laborers in this process, and I think that that narrative is changing as far as women and what they can do and how valuable they are to the profession.
Mm.
So I'm excited about it. Um, is the ceiling still ceramic? It depends on where you are, what department you. No department is just the same. No leader is the same. We all come at this differently. But that is why I said when you come to conferences such as IACP, we come here to sharpen our servant skills. We come here to hear, okay, what are best practices? What is working in your department? Okay, how can I better be responsive to my customers, internal customers, which is my officers and supervisors as a leader?
Yes.
There may be some things I need to change to improve what we're doing. It's not saying it's bad, but we all have a responsibility to look at things and say, can I do something better? And
Yes.
when I have leadership meetings, I always say to the leaders and even the officers, I want to hear your concerns, your criticism, your complaints, and your compliments. All of the C's are important
Mm.
for us to be the best that we can be.
And that's wonderful, the humility of that heart posture. You're
Hmm.
a servant leader, is
Yes,
what it sounds
yes,
like.
yes,
I know you've been in law enforcement for 3 decades,
yes, yes,
and you've served as the president of Noble,
yes, mm,
and now, of course, you're now the winner of this award
yes.
as the woman law enforcement executive. Can you talk a little bit about that diversity element? Clearly, it's important to you that we have a diverse
Hmm.
population of law enforcement
Yes.
officers. Share with me why that's so important for community relations.
I think diversity is important because we serve everybody. We have to be very strategic and intentional about representing our communities. Sometimes I laugh at myself because I know you all probably call me the Noah's Ark chief because I always want two, two, two. I want to make sure that I'm representing everyone when I can do that. And there are times you can when you just go out and you say, I need you, I need you. And it's not always about saying, oh, you just want this group or that group. No, I want to represent everybody. I don't get into the politics. We're not representing your political affiliation, but your community. I want our staff to be reflective of the people that we serve. And we serve, it's a melting pot, especially in Houston.
Right.
And sometimes we hit the mark, and then there are times, and just like any other community, where you have a hard time in certain areas trying to attract people to this profession. But one of the things I always say, if there's another day, we have another opportunity, and we don't give up.
I hear why everybody says you have the Vera-isms. I love this. These nuggets of wisdom I'm collecting. I can I can
Thank,
I can tell you're somebody that is worth being around.
thank you.
Now, tell me a little bit about you're talking about diversity. There's obviously this other element of wellness
Yes,
that you care about.
yes.
How do we keep officers well? What are some things you've implemented in that area?
Some of the things that I've done in that area of wellness is I have what I call a TAP meeting. And TAP stands for Talking About Positives, where I only meet with officers, no supervisors. And it's optional, it's not mandatory, but I offer the meetings at different times so we make sure that we're not imposing on anyone who may work nights. I've had the meeting at midnight for the night shift.
Wow.
So, and what I want to hear from them is, how is everybody doing? One of the things that I say starting out the conversation, we're not going to talk about your supervisor and we're not going to talk about your shift. But what I want to hear is, how is everybody doing? Can we improve what we're doing?
And you host these meetings?
I host the meetings.
Okay.
Is there anything we can improve? Do you have any suggestions on how we can improve morale? Or are we being responsive to our officers? Are we showing that we care. Do you feel like we care about you? And so those are some of the things that I ask, and I have gotten the best recommendations from those meetings, just from officers. They're the ones on the ground. They make us look good. And I always let them know, I work for you. You don't work for me. I work for you. And so you're my customer. And I come at it from that point because I want to make sure that my customer is okay. Do I please everybody? Absolutely not. But I can either focus on the 90% that say, you know what, you're listening to me, you care about me, I'm okay with some of the decisions you make. I may not like all of them, but I know you care about me. Or I can focus on the 10%. No matter what I do, I'm not going to please them. So I'm hoping that me focusing on the 90% will put that peer pressure, because that 10% is watching. They're watching that 90%. How are you responding to her or him, your leader? So that is one of the things I do. The other thing with supervisors, I meet with them once a month, and I tell them, if you have someone who calls in sick more than 3 days, I want you to call them a welfare check. Are you okay? Is everything good? You may really be sick, and just
Yeah.
check on them. I'm just checking on you. I don't need to know your diagnosis. I don't need to. I just want to make sure you're okay. Is there anything we can do? Everybody that I know of who may lose a loved one, I send them a personal note. When we have people who are out sick for extended lengths of time for surgery or whatever, I send them a note just to say, follow your doctor's orders. We're thinking about you, praying for you.
Wow.
Be encouraged. We'll see you when you get back. Take your time, rest. People just want to know that you care.
It sounds like a lot of your officers have access to you.
They do.
Which is unique for
They do.
an agency.
Yes, it is.
Some people, it's like top, and then
Yes.
executives are very separate. White
Yes.
shirts. It's interesting that you've led from this approach, and
Yes.
it sounds like you've had positive
I
feedback
have. I
from
think
that.
I've had positive feedback from it. And I know because of the size we are, maybe if we were like a Chicago or Houston, maybe you can't touch everyone like that. I understand it. But for the size that we are, and I know I can do it, I'm not trying to be a big city chief, because I know, they have their roles and what they do and how they do it, and I'm sure they're doing it well. But I'm in a position where I can do that, and why not do it?
Right. And what kind of incidents do you find where you're engaging with the community, your officers are engaging with the community from the Metro Transit level? I mean, I lived in D.C.,
Yes.
so I used to take transit, and
Right.
there would be some situations where everybody,
yeah.
so I know they exist. Can you tell me a little bit about how you can kind of create positive interactions, in those areas? And
One of the things we do is we call it Meet Metro Police.
okay.
So we'll go to a transit station, we'll go to a parking ride, we'll go to a transit center, we'll go to a bus stop. If it has a parking lot close, and I'll take as many of our personnel as I can, and we'll interact and we'll give them contact cards which say, are we doing a good job? Do you have any complaints about, the law enforcement service, your safety? We're doing things to connect, because we have a transit community that we're serving.
Yes.
We're not going to anybody's house. So we don't want them to just see us only when they call when there's a problem on the train or the bus. We want them to see us also as community policing agency, where we're reaching out. I've connected with the Salvation Army. Every year we do a back to school drive where I ask officers to donate backpacks, school supplies, and I do the Salvation Army because they don't have cars. People who live there, that's a family residency. So
Right.
usually back to school drives, you'll see parents that can drive to the location to get the school supplies. These parents can't.
Right.
So we've partnered. We do that for back to school, and we also do it for Christmas. Those are our customers because they use our system.
Right.
And
It's
so
a specific population.
specific population.
And-
So that's some of the outreach that we do to connect outside of law enforcement duties, just
Right.
showing that, both sides.
The human element.
Yes, the serving and then protecting. That's
Yes.
a part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. So now we've kind of collected some opinions here, so I'd
Yeah.
love to know yours about the moonshot goal.
Okay.
Axon has put out to cut all gun-related deaths by 50% between police and the public in 10 years. How do you feel about that goal? What is your take on it, and what do you think we need to get there, specifically on that culture piece that you're talking about?
I want to say that one of the things I like about Axon is that they are always trying to improve relationships, not only in the law enforcement area, but even in the community. It's like we're here, we got your back for law enforcement,
Mm-hmm.
and we want to see that improvement in community relations. And I love the commitment there because we cannot do it alone. Just like we tell the public we need your help, we need the help from our technology partners. We need the help from those vendors who say we're doing this to improve the law enforcement profession so you can have better access to tools to help and not hurt. So
Mm-hmm.
it's not about us, just doing a negativity kind of thing with the community, but it's a positive. And you've partnered with law enforcement, or Axon has. I believe the goal is definitely attainable because you have a CEO that, in my opinion, believes that all things are possible, and he has that don't give up mentality. Okay, if we don't hit the mark there, we're going to try it again. So I am just so elated and definitely impressed with the commitment that Axon has to law enforcement and making it a better profession, to better the profession, not only again just the profession, but they care about the community. And so I believe that it's attainable. But I do believe that we do our part also in this law enforcement profession. Though they're our partners, uh, we're their customers, and so I think we have a responsibility to say this is working for us, and this is not. So whatever it is that we bring to them, I believe that the organization is so responsive that they'll say, okay, we'll go back to the drawing board. And when you have a partnership like that, it can't do anything but improve and get better for everybody. It's working for everybody. So I'm excited about it.
When we first spoke, which was via Zoom,
Yes.
you said something that was, I think, is a sentiment of all law enforcement officers. And I don't want to generalize here, but you said
Yeah.
that nobody wakes up and decides that they want to shoot some and kill
Yes.
somebody today.
Yes.
So, can you talk a little bit about what we can do, how we can connect, some of the things that you've shared, this community
Mhm.
element, this diversity, the mentorship that you've had, all these different ways that we can connect that to officer involved shootings. Is there a correlation?
Well, I don't, I'm not a researcher, so I'm sure somebody's done the research on that, the correlation. But I do believe that nobody wakes up and says, you know what, I think I want to go kill somebody today. And a lot of times we Monday morning quarterback, or some of the situations we've seen, the incidents, egregious, absolutely. And even in that, I don't think those officers probably had that intent. When that adrenaline gets to going, and you fall back to emotion, sometimes a lot of things can happen. But I'm a big believer, and I built my leadership foundation on the three C's, which is communication, cooperation, and collaboration. We have to communicate, and when you communicate, we're educating. We have to educate the public. It's no longer that we're keeping it inside the four walls. We have to be willing to be transparent. There are no secrets, and I say this all the time, unless it involves discipline. That is the only thing that I believe when someone is going through a disciplinary process, as we do the investigation, and then even after that, once we complete it, I think there are many agencies now that are saying, okay, this is what we found, this is our findings. Please trust us to do a thorough investigation. But I do believe we need to be more transparent, and I see agencies doing that, which is exciting, and it's a positive. We're going in the right direction, I believe, with that. But communicating whenever we get an opportunity, and even filtering that down to our line officers. Be willing to communicate with the public. Do you have a question about what we're doing, our process? Make sure that they can articulate what your department is doing.
Right.
And then the collaboration. We have to collaborate with other law enforcement agencies. We have to partner. It can't be just this is my agency and I'm not. We're doing it on our own. We need to collaborate because when people see that patch, they only see police. They don't see this is the one agency X, this is agency A. They don't see that. They see police and I need help.
Yeah.
So we have to be willing to collaborate and then cooperate. If we mess up, we fess up. Just say it. We messed up. Our officer messed up. We're going to get it right. And
Mm.
there are times we will mess up. And some of the situations are not so bad where an officer has to be terminated. But if we explain to the community, if we explain and make sure our officers understand this is where you went wrong. But there are times when you will have to terminate. But I do think it starts with that communication and making sure that we do a good job of educating the community and our personnel on what we do and how we do it, and that we protect our brand. I always say this patch is our brand. When you mess up, it's a reflection on all of us, not only our agency but law enforcement as a whole.
Yeah.
So it's important that we protect our brand, and we do that through professionalism, integrity, and being committed to what you do. And just like I said, why I started, we have to embrace why we stay.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting too is it's also about protecting you also being safe,
Yes.
as a law enforcement
Yes.
officer. And what I like so much about the moonshot goal is that it's really focusing on all life.
Yes, our life.
And because nobody wants to lose
Nobody.
their life, and nobody wants to take a life.
No,
I mean, most people.
no,
If
most
you're
people don't.
sane and you're,
Yeah, and you really value life and the sanctity of life and the preciousness of life. I do think that we all, at the end of the day, we want to go home. We say that for police officers, but I'm sure every citizen wakes up in the morning expecting to go home that evening. So, irregardless of what you've done, and even when we have to take people to jail, I said we're going to be respectful. There's no need to disrespect anybody. You're being arrested no matter what you've done. We're going to treat you with respect. So we're not going to violate anybody's civil rights or, be aggressive in our use of force. Use the force as necessary. But I think that it's all in our perspective and how we look at it. And it starts at the top with leadership. That's why I say nobody knows what the seat feels like until you sit in it, but it starts with the leadership, because many times when something happens, they won't go to that person. They're going to look at the leader. Why did that person do this? So it starts with the leadership. You set the tone and the expectations, again, communicating, making sure that we look at our training, making sure that whatever we need to do to ensure that we are being relevant and we're evolving, we're doing, looking at everything, all of our tools, how we use them. And again, if there's a situation where we can reach out to our vendors, our partners, Axon or any other vendor that we may use and say, hey, this may not be working, this is what we're encountering. But that's communication again, to make sure that we're delivering the best service that we can.
Well, I mean, I think it sounds wonderful what you're doing as a leader, and I think, we're at a conference where agencies big and small, all of
Yes.
the leaders are here.
Yes,
And
awesome leaders are here. Many that I admire, many that I've gotten to meet that I didn't know. But I'm excited that this is a very noble profession. And I think that we have some current leaders, some up and coming leaders, and we have some retired leaders that are still pouring into us to say, you know what, we're going to keep it a noble profession. So I'm excited about the future.
well, that's wondrul. And congratulations.
Thank you so
again
much.
for your award. And
Thank
I'm
you.
looking forward to all the things that come from you, Chief Bumpers. And
Thank you so much.
thank you for sharing your thoughts.
Yes, thank you for the
And-
opportunity.
And for partnering,
Yes,
and
yes.
committing to the goal yourself as
Yes,
well. Appreciate
thank
it.
you.
All right, thank you so much for watching First Responders Network. We're live here at IACP. We'll be back tomorrow. And thank you so much for watching.